Does the universe have big plans for you?
Chances are, with your lagna lord in the 10th house, you might just be destined for greatness.
So today we are going to be covering some of our observations for anyone with their lagna lord placed in the 10th house of their astrological birth chart. So make sure you watch all the way to the end of this video for our tips on how you can take the most advantage of this astrological placement.
So this video will apply to you if you have the lord of your ascendant sign or lagna going into the 10th house of your astrological birth chart from the ascendant, or if from the moon sign, the lord of your moon sign goes to the 10th house from there.
So as just a quick review, in Vedic astrology, the lagna or ascendant lord is a pivotal planet that represents the self, your vitality, and your overall life path.
When the lagna lord is placed in the 10th house, it influences the native's life through the themes associated with the 10th house. These themes can be related to career and profession, your public reputation, authority and power, government, karma and duties. The 10th house is actually sometimes referred to as karma bhava or karma sthana, worldly accomplishments and status.
There are a lot of positives for someone who has their lagna lord placed in the 10th house, and one of them is career success. These people have a really strong potential for professional achievement. They end up usually in leadership positions, and they gain a lot of recognition in their field, whatever that might be. And that's due to the lagna lord's influence on the karma bhava, which is the house of action.
So another positive trait that this placement can impart is an ambitious drive. This person can be very goal-oriented with a natural inclination to pursue and excel in their chosen career or public life. The 10th house is the highest of the Artha bhavas, so that's houses related to Artha or material prosperity. And the first one is the 2nd house. The second one is the 6th house, and the third one, which is the highest manifestation of those significations of Artha in your life, is the 10th house. So that means that being really ambitious to achieve material prosperity is something that the 10th house is going to impart when it's activated.
Right, and because the 10th house has to do with your public reputation, with your lagna lord going there, you're very likely to gain respect and authority and a very positive image in society or, of course, in your profession, if there's not negative afflictions. So, of course, your unique birth chart placements do play a role, but in general, this is a great placement for your profession and your reputation. The 10th house is also the highest point in the sky. So that's, if you think about the highest point in the sky, everybody can see it, right? No matter where you are, you can look straight up and see it, and that would be the 10th house.
So this can also give a lot of self-confidence to the person that has this lagna lord placed in the 10th house. It can strengthen the confidence of an individual, especially in relation to their professional endeavors. The 10th house is where the sun naturally gets the most directional strength if it's placed there. That doesn't mean that the sun is placed in your 10th house, but because the sun naturally gets its highest amount of directional strength in the 10th house, this imparts this quality of the 10th house where if it is activated in your chart, especially by the lagna lord's placement there, it can make you shine in society because the sun shines the brightest at noon when it's in the 10th house.
Right.
And the sun is the natural significator of confidence in anyone's life or in astrology in general. So that nature of the sun getting the directional strength there imparts confidence from the 10th house.
Someone with this placement feels pretty aligned with their purpose in this life, since the placement of the lagna lord indicates the area of life where a person will naturally gravitate towards. This individual's personal goals are likely to align with their career aspirations.
Because that placement is naturally making them gravitate towards being in a career anyways, so it's not as hard, it's not as much of an internal conflict where they want to really be doing something else, but then they have to do career as well. They're already like, no, I want to have a career.
Right, and we reference the original primordial birth chart, and it's really important because those themes are always playing in everyone's birth chart, no matter what lagna you are. And the original 10th house, of course, is Capricorn, which is a sign of duty and work and fulfilling your karmic path.
So one more positive quality that this placement can give is that it can cause a person to make contributions to society. So when the lagna lord is well placed in the 10th house, this can indicate a life path which is characterized by making some contribution to the public. This comes with many benefits like respect and everything else, so it's a good placement.
It is. And with any placement, of course, there are some negatives. There's always pros and cons. And these, of course, are potential negatives that could come up with your lagna lord being placed in the 10th house. We've talked a lot about career, of course, which can be a very positive thing. But sometimes there might be an overemphasis on your career. This placement can cause an excessive amount of focus on professional life. Especially if you're not, self-aware and paying attention to it because you're so drawn to it. So this might also cause the person to neglect maybe their personal relationships or any of their other areas of life. For example, things that are related to your 4th house, which is your home life, your vehicles, your mother, and all those significations. And then, of course, the 7th house would be your spouse and your romantic relationships. So it's just something to be aware of. You don't want to neglect other areas of your life.
Yeah, and if you think about the 4th house especially, the 10th house is the opposite house from the 4th house. So the 10th house is where you go out of the house to be in your career, to be in your work. And that's away, that's the furthest place away from the 4th house.
Right.
So if you're naturally wanting to be there because the lagna lord's placement is there, then you're naturally also kind of wanting to be away from home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which can leave your home life a little neglected sometimes.
So just, astrology is the best form of self-help.
Something to remember.
Yes.
So another negative trait that this could impart to an individual is a little bit of a potential for arrogance or over-identification with status and achievements, especially if the lagna lord is afflicted here. So this person may seek approval through achievements, which can lead to some insecurity if they're not getting the public recognition or the recognition from the world in general that they would prefer to be having. This is the house of fame in some way. There are a couple different houses that can be looked at for fame, but one of the most important ones for determining if a person is going to be famous or want to be famous is the 10th house. Remember, because the sun is at its highest place where everyone can see in the 10th house. So this position kind of gives a person a desire to be famous, and it doesn't need to be a bad thing in any way. It's going to be natural for someone with lagna lord in the 10th house. But if you're not getting it, or if you're not getting enough of that fame that you so naturally want to have, it can be very frustrating and create insecurity. So that's something to watch out for.
Right. And any affliction to your lagna lord or your 10th house, or if there's a malefic impact at all, it's going to kind of create more, or at least you'll see a little bit more of these negative aspects that we're talking about. And one of those is if there could be an impact on your reputation. So we talked about how the 10th house is your public face and your reputation. So if you have, of course, negative afflictions, that could negatively impact your reputation slightly, especially if your lagna lord is weak. That could be debilitated or, aspected by malefics. And also that could lead to some professional setbacks. Could be scandals. And those, of course, can result in a loss of public standing. So if you think about anyone who is famous in general or is, the CEO of some company, but then they get involved in some sort of scandal, what ends up happening is their reputation takes a huge hit. So it's something to kind of be aware of. And so because the 10th house is the highest point in the sky, like we talked about, afflictions can also represent a fall from a high position. So, you potentially could get canceled, right? Or like I was talking about, your reputation can be ruined. So you're already at the highest point. So if you're going to fall and you're at the highest point, that fall's going to be a lot harder and longer of a landing.
Yeah, to go from having status, the highest amount of status that you could have, to all of a sudden not having status can be extremely painful.
So I guess maybe try to avoid scandals if you can, which is probably good advice for anyone.
Yeah, definitely. So this position can also create a little bit of karmic pressure. So the 10th house focuses on karma, which is your actions in the world in this life. And that can bring an intense amount of responsibilities or challenges. So especially if the lagna lord is poorly placed here, that can intensify this kind of burden of responsibility that has to be taken on in order to do all of this karma in the world. And this person may end up having to focus all of their energy on work and responsibilities, even if they don't necessarily want to. So depending on the nature of this placement in your chart, you may really naturally love to be always in your career, always handling responsibilities, always being in a position of authority. But if there's some kind of weakness going on there with the lagna lord placed in the 10th house, that could make it so that you might not have the confidence or the desire to be doing all that karma, but you are somehow in the position where you have to. And so this could lead to burnout or fatigue, and it can build up to a lot of stress and pressure. So
yes. And another thing that will affect this placement is, of course, the dasha period. And that's something unique about Vedic astrology, is we really look at the dasha and the timing of your life to see kind of which houses and planets are going to kind of be most relevant. So the effects of the lagna lord in the 10th house become prominent during its planetary period, or dasha, or the antardasha, which are the subperiods. And the other thing to take into consideration is the sign placement of the lagna lord. So is your lagna lord, no matter what house it's in, but if it's in the 10th house, what sign is it in? Is it friendly sign? Is it a sign of exaltation, debilitation? That really is going to shape the expression of your 10th house. For example, if you are an Aries lagna, okay, and you have Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, and Mars is in your 10th house, which would be Capricorn, the sign would be Capricorn, that is a really, really strong placement, because Capricorn is the exaltation sign for Mars. So now you have your lagna lord sitting in its exaltation sign in the 10th house. So that, and it's Mars, which is the planet of energy and action.
Very good placement.
Very good placement for your career.
Yep.
So another example, just to kind of look at the opposite effect, if you are a Gemini lagna, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. And let's say you have Mercury in your 10th house. it's going to be debilitated because your 10th house will be the sign of Pisces, and Mercury becomes debilitated in Pisces. So now you're in a situation where your lagna lord sits in the 10th house in a debilitated state, weakening its effects.
So what are our tips for taking the most possible advantage of this placement? You made it all the way through to the end of this video, so now we have our special tips to help you take advantage of having the lagna lord placed in the 10th house and get the best possible results out of it. So tip number 1 is going to be a professional of some kind. So the 10th house is often considered to represent those career paths which are considered kind of superior to employment. So that could be, we're talking about people who maybe are a professional accountant or a consultant or a lawyer or a doctor or a business owner or someone who goes into public service of some kind, or a government official or politician. It's some kind of superior career path where you are kind of in a position of authority to some degree. And the 10th house also can be seen to represent bosses. So with your lagna lord, which represents you and who you are in the 10th house of bosses, that means you should be the boss, not really anyone else in most cases.
So another tip that's really important is you're going to want to put hard work in every day. Whatever it is you're doing, you've got to put the effort in. Of course, I think that's advice for anyone. But with this placement, the thing is, the 10th house is what we call an upachaya house, and that is a house that grows with time, okay? So it's going to grow faster the more effort and work you put into it, and you're going to rise faster to that position that you desire, which of course is the leadership role or the higher level position. So if you kind of just, go with the flow and kind of sit stagnant, yes, it will grow because the upachaya houses do grow over time, but the more effort you put in will accelerate that process, which will in the end make you feel more comfortable and happy.
Yeah, and those daily efforts, that daily putting the hard work in every single day, that's more represented by the 6th house. And the 6th house, because it's the 9th from the 10th, is something that's in Sanskrit referred to as bhagya uday, which means it's the luck of the 10th house, essentially. So when you engage in that hard work every day to try to get the benefits out of the upachya nature of the 10th house, you're putting in that 6th house, energy of that daily grind, and that is acting as the 9th house or the luck of your 10th house, your career. So when you put that in, that's going to accelerate and increase your chances of getting into that 10th house position that you really need to be in. Mm-hmm. So another tip that we have is to try not to get canceled.
Yeah.
So based on certain positions are going to have this risk more than others. Like, for example, the Sun and Saturn sitting together in the 10th house for anyone, whether it's the lagna lord or not, is going to create a situation where at some point during life, this person may fall from that position of authority. And so that's something where if you have this placement, it's something to watch out for. And you could extrapolate that and kind of think about it a little bit and see that, well, okay, if there's a lot of malefic impact or difficulty going on with my 10th house, especially with the lagna lord there, that can mean that there is a risk at some point for having that reputation and that status taken at some point. Mm-hmm. So all that means is to be very intentional about guarding your reputation. Be intentional about how you speak. Carry yourself as a leader. Carry yourself as an example for others. That's what a leader is supposed to do, and that's what a lot of politicians, for example, whether they're completely fake or not, they're carrying themselves, at least, even if it's a complete lie, as if they're an example for others, or a person that should be looked up to by others. So that's how you want to carry
At least
yourself.
they're supposed to be.
Yeah, at least they're supposed to be.
Not all of them are doing that, but
exactly.
yes.
So that's how you want to carry yourself with the lagna lord in the 10th house, kind of as, okay, I'm a public figure. Even if you're not famous at all right now, just kind of think of yourself like, okay, how does a public figure
Because it's your
behave?
reputation.
It's your
though.
reputation.
So that's what, what do you want your reputation to be? And of course there are things we can't control in life. There are inevitable karmas we have to deal with. But we have, like we talked about in a previous video, we do have free will. So this is where you, by doing the best you can to guard, just like Jack said, your reputation, that's the free will you can enact to try to avoid these potential cancellation situations. Well, we hope you found these tips helpful. If you're not sure that if your lagna lord's in the 10th house, we do have a free birth chart calculator. So you should check us out at atmaoccult.com. And there's plenty of options if you'd like to learn more about your individual birth chart on our website.
Especially our career consultations. That's going to be something that you would definitely like with the 10th house placement.
Yes, exactly. This is right. That's right in line. Again, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe and watch
all of our
videos.